Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ron Whitlock. We have with us today Barry Goldsmith, who's the warning coordinator and meteorologist from the National Weather Service, Brownsville, Texas Weather Forecast Office, and my second guest, Everett Shanskaski, who's the general manager of the Bahia Mar Resort and Conference Center, South Padre Island, Texas, who was our host as we went through the eye wall of Hurricane Dolly when she made landfall South Padre Island, Texas, and the eye wall moved totally over the hotel. We were in the first floor of the hotel with 25 other guests. Mr. Kasky was the shepherd of all of these individuals as the building began to disintegrate. We are going to have an opportunity for you to see the absolute autopsy of Hurricane Dolly's eye, 2008, as she moved over the island, because we're going to have the radar from the Weather Service provided by Mr. Goldsmith and staff, and then Everett and I will be able to tell you all the fun we were having and some of the terror that was going on, a little bit at least, as the eye wall came over South Padre Island, Texas. Thank you both for joining us. Thank you for protecting me and the other guests at the Hotel Everett.
Absolutely.
Now, Barry, as the official weatherman here on our program today and for the audience's observation, tell us basically from the standpoint of when the hurricane left the Yucatan Peninsula as a tropical storm into the Gulf of Water, kind of move us on up to about 24 hours out from landfall.
Well, and sometime on Monday, the storm did move off the Yucatan Peninsula, and it moved off the northern tip. And it jumped quickly northwest of there, which got us a little bit nervous because it didn't spend much time over land in the Yucatan, which allowed it to get free of some of the shear that was impacting it and begin to grow. But it took a long time to grow, and all day Monday it was really taking its good, sweet time getting stronger.
But it was still moving 18, in some cases 20 miles per hour forward movement.
And it was beginning to slow down at that point as we had forecast. And the atmosphere was basically saying, I like to bring hurricanes around these flow patterns, ridges of high pressure and troughs of low pressure in the upper levels where the steering currents are. And as it got farther west, it had been just trucking along around the periphery of this strong subtropical high pressure ridge at about, say, 20, 25, 30,000 feet. And we could all see on our satellite data and even some model data that the end was near for that high pressure area. There was a weak trough in West Texas, which we all knew could be trouble for not only slowing the storm, but also redirecting it on a more northwest track right towards the lower Rio Grande Valley. And that's exactly what happened as we got into Tuesday afternoon, especially Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. It did slow its forward speed. It came in a little bit sooner than we had earlier thought on the weekend, but it still slowed down enough to get pretty close to our timing, which originally had been near Wednesday evening, early Thursday morning, as in midnight, and it came in to land at around noon, 1 o'clock. So it was fairly much on track with the slowdown, just a little bit faster because of the earlier speed off the Yucatan.
Now, we are going to be showing you the actual footage of what was going on inside the eye as it struck the Bahia Mar Resort and Conference Center, with all the debris flying around and so forth. Now, what were you doing during this stage in preparation for the arrival of Dolly at your hotel?
I had all of my grounds team and maintenance boarding up windows on the front side of the beach, preparing, turning off gas, making sure the power things, when it goes down, we have the main switch off. We really try to get everything done. All of the chairs that were on the balconies and everything were removed into the rooms. Anything that could be projectile and do some damage, we had to put away.
You were protecting and telling guests for their own protection that they could leave if they wanted to. If they wanted to, they need to do it now.
Absolutely, because you never know with these things. I mean, they get out there and they start doing this number. You never know where it's going to go, and it could strengthen. So my best bet to tell them was go ahead and leave if you would like.
So Monday and Tuesday, the storm has moved into the Gulf of Mexico, over the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, and as you just explained for the National Weather Service, Barry, still moving very quickly, still sub-hurricane at that point, a tropical storm, but then 24 hours out, 10 o'clock bulletin on the day prior to starting to make movement, starting to slow down, starting to intensify. What was going on then?
Well, it was interesting. The storm had been in a fight with some shear in the upper levels of the atmosphere. What shear does to a hurricane is it blows the top off, almost the lid off the storm, so it takes its heat source and pushes it away. Therefore, it has a hard time intensifying. And it was fighting this area of shear upper-level winds that was moving with the storm from Cuba into the Bay of Campeche. Finally, it got out of the way and weakened, and it did so just within 24 to even 18 hours of landfall. And at that point, we started seeing Dolly really start to wrap up and become a Category 1 hurricane. And as it got even closer to the coast in the last 6 to 12 hours, it intensified even further. The combination of now, like I said, meeting that edge of that high-pressure ridge, that weak trough to the west, and going in that little slot where the atmosphere is saying, I can't move it very fast. It's over warm waters. There's no shear aloft. It's already wrapping its energy up. And like we've seen in other hurricanes in the past, at this stage, they can wrap up pretty quickly. And in this case, it's exactly what happened, especially late Tuesday night into midday Wednesday.
At 10 o'clock, that's when it began to hit the hotel. We're going to show you actual footage now of some of the pre-Dolly movement of the winds and so forth around the Bahia Mar Resort and Conference Center. Now, what are you seeing on the radar at that moment as these pictures are being taken actually at the Bahia Mar Resort and Conference Center?
Well, it was interesting because I think between 7 and 8 in the morning, we actually saw the first signs of this southwest eyewall getting very active. And again, we have some radar images that will show that. In northern Mexico, about 8 miles south of the U.S.-Mexico border near the mouth of the Rio Grande, we got a report in early in the morning of 119-mile-per-hour gust. And a lot of times we get these reports in, we don't always trust them, but it was lining up with what our radar was showing on wind velocity and this really strong area of heavy, heavy rain. And we got a call from the Hurricane Center director saying, this is someone we've spoken to who we trust. And at that point, we realized that we were in for some problems if that eyewall were to continue to be active as the storm eased northward. And that's exactly what happened. So by the time 10 a.m. rolls around, that same eyewall re-intensified right across Port Isabel down to South Padre Island. And then the storm decided to slow down a bit.
Now we're seeing right now, Mr. Weatherman, the actual recording of the live shot being made by Everett Chanskaski and Dave Price, the meteorologist from the CBS television network. They're in front of the Bahia Mar Resort and Conference Center. So you see them being videoed and actually being fed via satellite to the studios in New York. There is your facility. Tell us what's going on, Everett.
It was very windy. We stood out there, and the rain actually was coming in at an angle sideways, and it stings your face very, very, very hard when it hits.
That's you on the right.
Right.
Dave Price on the left.
Exactly. And he had, towards the end there, he had actually asked me, what are you most worried about for the next 4 to 5 hours? And at that point I said, next 4 to 5 hours, I'm more worried about the next 4 to 5 minutes standing out here with you. And then I was pushed away. But it was extremely windy, and it was beginning to have some major gusts. And a couple of his cameramen were really fighting to hold on, and Edward and I had to walk back up to the staircase, and that was very difficult getting there at that point. But boy, it got a lot worse.
Edward being Edward Jackson, our executive producer and videographer on that particular moment. Now, there was some debris flying, but that debris was beach debris by and large,
Correct.
Not debris from the hotel proper. So, in effect, you were really not under a tremendous amount of danger. There was obviously some danger,
Sure.
as it always is when you're standing out in hurricane-force winds with gusts up to 100 miles per hour. Now, let's run some of the maximum damage footage that we had that was being made during the passing of the eye wall of Hurricane Dolly as our autopsy of Hurricane Dolly continued. Now, this is when we saw the maximum winds. You were seeing this. What were you thinking, Everett?
Well, I was very concerned for all of you guys and for my staff. I was very, very worried, trying to keep everybody away from the windows and the doors. At that point, it seemed like
23 other people other
Yeah.
than the CBS crew, which was 6 people.
Exactly. And at times, the walls were literally breathing. We would have our hands on them. You could feel it. This here is the executive office. And if you see those winds right through that, it was amazing. It was
That's your office.
Yes,
your actual office.
And it was absolutely amazing to see those winds coming through there. Golly, that was
And your thoughts as you look in there and your office is gone.
Don't need to be here. I need to be further into the hotel.
But by then?
Yeah, by then it was too late. We were all stuck. And that right there is our outdoor patio bar right by the first pool. in the courtyard area, and look at that. That's amazing. This is on the second floor bathroom area, outdoor bathroom area, and the roof, actually part of that roof just went. And we're showing how it's lifting up and stuff. But, absolutely amazing. And Edward was up there right there filming this, and I was thinking, we need to get away from this. We need to get away from this. And right after that is when it got really, really bad.
If I had known that Edward Jackson, my executive producer, was up there, I would not have been a happy camper.
Yeah. Well, I was glad he was with me. I didn't want to be alone.
Look at the power. Look at the power.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. This is in the lobby right after the windows broke on the front by the,
that was
front office
you
area. Walking
tiptoeing
past.
through the water.
Right. And it did get much higher than that. It got about ankle deep.
And the water was being blown in, Mr. Goldsmith, actually by the winds of Hurricane Dolly and her
under the
eyewall.
doors and everything. It was
Yeah, sure. That could definitely happen with the
There's the
strong winds
lobby.
and the surge that was coming in from the
That
west.
was the first breach.
And there is where the office, the business center, went out. And just the whole entire wall came in. That's normally where you would check in, right over in that area. I think it'll be a while before we can do that again.
This is video of your adjoining hotel motel.
Right, that's actually, I think, the Travel Lodge next door. Yeah, they got some pretty strong roof damage.
Looking what direction?
That was looking south.
Looking south. Okay.
That's one of the CBS producers. And right when he turned that corner, the wind hit him and he fell. Now that's inside our lobby area.
Of the hotel.
Right, that is the hallway going into the executive offices. That's one of my security officers going back there. And then you'll see one whole side of the wall for the executive office. That's actually looking out that wall of where we sit.
At this moment, this is looking out toward the north and west through the office that had exploded.
Yes.
So at that point, the eye wall had actually moved, Barry, from the northwest, which was the original amount of sustained winds that the hotel was receiving. It had moved into a northwesterly to a southwesterly position, and then into a southerly position, and it was the southerly position that actually breached the plate glass windows of the hotel and therefore brought in the water, rain, and debris into the actual first floor of the facility.
Yeah,
That's the back of banquets area, and at that point, the wall was still standing, just part of the roof had gone. But
You have 25 people that
Right.
you're shepherding around
Moving
with
them
your
around.
security guard.
Absolutely.
Now, what are you trying to accomplish for the people that you're trying to protect, Everett?
I want them safe. I want them away from the walls, away from the windows. Anything that's going to have the possibility of collapsing or blowing in, I had to keep them away from it. At that point, the wall had fallen off the side of banquets, which you'll see in just a moment. The second floor is just gone.
What is the audience seeing now?
That's the second floor of banquets, and all that is exposed.
That's the banquet hall.
Yes.
So behind us, when it had turned and the eye had moved further inland, and therefore we were receiving maximum, very dangerous winds now from the southeast, which means on the
Right.
Gulf side, you had moved us then out of the kitchen area
Right.
and the employee break area back into the actual restaurant proper.
Exactly. Because
So
it
you
started
were
shifting
moving us from one end of the hotel to the
Yeah.
other as it became more and more dangerous
Yes, it did.
from the aspect of damage to the interior of the
Correct.
hotel.
Correct. This is a
Now,
part.
this is where your security guards, you told them to go out and check on the 15 guests that you
We had a lull.
out
Yeah.
in during the eye lull. You had sent them out into the condo area to find any guests and bring them into the hotel proper.
Correct, because we lost. There's a whole entire staircase that was taken out, all 3 floors, and lots of damage. I wanted to make sure that if they could get in and they wanted to get into the inner side of the hotel, they were welcome to come in.
So this, in effect, is a search party of your guards
Yes.
who had gone out to search every condominium that you knew had been rented and leased to a guest.
Correct.
And did they find anyone,
Oh yeah, quite a few, and they came running in gratefully.
including one injury?
Yes. Stairwell had fallen and hit him on the top of the head and caused a pretty severe cut.
So it was the stairwell being destroyed by the winds of Dolly
Yes.
that caused him to be physically damaged and
Absolutely.
then brought into the lobby.
Correct, exactly.
Now you're looking here, Barry, at all of these vehicles to the side of the Bahia Mar Resort and Conference Center, all of these windows being blown out. Now this was done by wind, correct?
It certainly looks like it. I mean, this is what we see with pretty decent tornadoes, 120 mile-an-hour wind type tornadoes that are pulsing their winds much more tightly than a hurricane would. But there's no question that the worst effect here happened when that southwestern eyewall moved across the island and just held there for about 2 to 3 hours, I think between like 10 and noon or 10 and 1 p.m. And that was when we also saw some storm surge flooding come from the bay side. The actual Laguna Madre welled up and moved the water that had built up from the overnight hours back across the island from west to east. At the same time, we believe that this wind shift may have saved the beach from any worse erosion that would have already happened. There was certainly some erosion before this event began or as it was getting closer, but the fact that landfall was north and not south of the island may have spared a lot of the beach from being gone. So one good thing there.
That's one of our employees. Her car actually got flooded.
And that's one of the things that we have
She was injured, correct?
Yes. Yeah. She's okay, but she had a
She went
piece
out
of
to
wood.
rescue her sister
It was a
who was in a condominium.
and a piece of wood hit her on the back real hard. Yeah. And that's pretty severe right there.
Is that your hotel?
Yes, it is. And it's very shocking to see. I mean, it's
That's
still,
your hotel right there we
Yes,
just saw.
sir. Absolutely. That was the maintenance shed. It kind of blew up.
Okay, and what's the audience seeing now?
That's the side of the hotel, the Bahia Mar, and right there's the hole for the executive offices. And if they go around and scan up, then it shows the 9th and 8th floor that the hole blew out of the wall.
Right after it had...
That's Padre Boulevard, right there.
Right to the north and west of your facility
Yes.
proper.
Mm-hmm.
Looking out at the
That
bayside.
is Padre Boulevard, and if you go that way, you're going to the bridge. The other way towards the public beach accesses.
And that's probably a combination of rainwater flooding and surge. Sometimes you get so much of both that you really have to be hard-pressed to figure out which one is doing what, because there was probably more than 12 inches of rain, if not more than that, that fell on the island. We're not talking much about rain because of the wind.
That's
but
an
there's a lot
8-floor
of rain.
suite.
Yeah, it's the best view. The best view of the Bahia Mar now.
That's an 8-floor corner suite.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you have any idea when it was breached, whether it was on the... Looks like the southeast side.
I believe it was the
is where the
southeast
breach
side.
actually happened and blew out the northwest wall of
Right.
your facility.
And then turned around and did it on the backside as well.
So, Barry, what did you just see? Tell us what you saw and what do you think happened at that point to Everest facility?
Based on the damage and based on what we got from some of our wind sensors at the time, it was raining very, very hard, almost like what I call a summer's blizzard. You really can't see very far, and that's what our radar was showing. Within those rain bands, we were getting sustained hurricane force winds. We have a measurement at 8 feet that was actually 78 miles per hour, only a couple of miles north of this spot at 8 feet. That means that higher up in this 8th or 9th floor, it could very well have been higher. How much higher, I'm not too sure. Probably maybe 90, perhaps, 80 to 90 mile per hour sustained winds. And the gust, the instantaneous gusts that we had at the same sensor 2 miles north of this location had 106 mile per hour, and the 3-second average gusts were 94. Again, translated to higher levels, I could easily put it closer to 110 or even higher at the instantaneous peak. The car windows that blew out, that may very well have been one of those punchy type peak, instantaneous gusts, and certainly it matches what we've seen in tornado surveys of 100 mile per hour wind gusts. So there's certainly a lot of corroborating evidence that matches up with wind gusts at least to Category 2 strength.
That's what I was seeing because Everett permitted me stupidly to move out into the beyond the lobby, out into the actual little enclave, right before the lobby doors, so to speak. I was sitting not actually in the gusty wind and the higher peaks that I knew was at least over 100 miles per hour, because the vehicles I was watching, and you were watching me sitting in front of the vehicle.
I was.
Shaking his head. The cars were going up and down like this. Had they not been facing into the wind with their windshields, I assure you, they would have been blown out, just like the windows on those other cars. You saw evidence of right there. Mr. Goldsmith, as it relates to the National Weather Service office in Brownsville, you're the fellow in charge of warning coordinator. Did you do your job? Did we do our jobs in the media in making sure that the valley was prepared and northern Mexico was prepared for what was going to happen?
I would have to say affirmative on that. We had no fatalities that we knew of during the storm.
One in Mexico.
One in Mexico.
Man stepped into a puddle of water where a power line had dropped earlier.
But we had none that we know of on state side, and that includes quite a large population that was affected both by flooding and by wind. We are starting to get some of these injury reports in. We know about the one off the 7th floor, and you've just mentioned at least one more. There may be a few more that we don't know about, but again, The fact that we have no deaths, I think, is a real good sign that we did our jobs. The forecast did certainly indicate intensification to a high Cat 1, low Cat 2 sustain, and that's about where we were. So the idea of slowing down, making Wednesday the miserable day, we were talking about that as early as Monday morning, that Wednesday's a day that you better be out or prepared and ready, because you're not going to have a chance on that day.
Too late to evacuate on that day. You need
Right.
to be hunkered down and ready to go.
Right.
The only injury in Wilson County, according to Wilson County Sheriff Larry Spence, was Alex Trevino of News Channel 5, who was out doing a stand-up in front of the camera during a time when gusts were coming and was struck in the neck by a piece of debris and was injured there and treated by Robert Wilcox of the Rainville Chronicle, Wilson County News. What is your opinion of these weathermen, the CBS weatherman and Alex and others who are standing out in front of their cameras while these winds are happening and debris is flying around?
My opinion, and this is just opinion, is that should be left to the people that really know how to do storm chasing, who can really bunker down and take video outside and still be safe. There's a group.
Well, these were professionals, but you've also watched about 15 YouTube clips that members of the general public have put up on YouTube, actually from the island, and your reaction to the public doing what they did.
Yeah, I think people find it very interesting, and certainly interesting weather is always a story that people want to be involved with. But by making themselves like sails and having the wind just hold them up like this, if that one pulsing 100-mile-an-hour gust gets them, there's a pretty good chance that if they don't withstand and are able to hold that up, they're going to go flying and get hurt, or maybe worse.
15 seconds each. What should the audience have learned by what they have seen on the program today?
Well, the big thing that we want to put out there is that any hurricane is dangerous and life-threatening, and we saw that here. Don't worry about the category. Sustained winds of 75 miles per hour or greater can kill and can hurt and can destroy things. So if we issue a hurricane warning, we mean business and make sure that people should really be safe. Don't worry about the category as much as being safe in their homes and their shelter.
Same question, Everett.
I think that if you believe and feel that you're prepared, don't always trust in that. If you go with the gut instinct thinking that you need to evacuate, do so.
Our congratulations to you, sir, for the heroic efforts of you and your staff in protecting the 40 people who were in your hotel when this high wall passed. I feel very, very, very honored to be on this program with you, having been there under your protection during that time, and I will consider you a friend
Absolutely.
for the rest of my life. Thank you very much for joining us, Barry Goldsmith. Thank you for joining us. Till next time, adios.